Hey, it's Amir Bormand, and this is another episode of the Daily 10 of the Talent Tango podcast with my brother Arash.
Hello.
And we want to talk today about something we actually were chatting about before work. We text a lot about work issues, just well, not when we're at work, but this
And that's a
came.
good topic to actually talk about, communicating via text nowadays, but that's
Yeah,
for another
well,
day.
we'll save that tomorrow. We always have tomorrow. Hopefully, if you don't have tomorrow, then you're in real trouble.
Then see
so
ya.
hopefully for tomorrow. So one thing that we kind of pride ourselves on is really asking a lot of questions from our candidates, from our clients, really trying to dig in internally. Even we like asking questions, and the cornerstone around that is um, if you don't know something, you need to educate yourself, and to educate yourself, you have to start by digging for answers somewhere. If you have someone you can ask questions of for them to directly give you that type of response, that's fantastic. If not, you have to, hit the web and research. But we started noticing that some clients we have, some candidates, there's little gaps, right? Gaps with everything, and we're now trying to dig even more. And I think we ask a lot of questions, so we have to be careful. I think of using.
Being annoying.
Yeah, and it's a challenge because managers are busy, HR directors are busy, and you're like, well, with the level of questions you've answered thus far, there's only so much I can go. I need more depth. Now, what's interesting is if these same people hired a consulting company, right? So if they went to consulting company and said, "We want you to come in and solve a problem," they would be pretty much very open to that
Well,
consulting
and I
company
think the
coming in and asking any depths of questions because they believe there's a solution coming.
right. Well, I think it's the consultative approach to recruitment, and it's the same process, right? It's about having that process in place. So if a consulting company is successful, they have a certain set procedure, right? They have to be able to understand the problem to then be able to find the right solution. And I think the same thing happens in a recruiting fashion. It's just very high level.
It's
Like
very fast.
very fast, very high level. We don't really tend to get into the details as frequently as we need to. And I think one of the other problems is it's like I just want to see resumes. And I think the more you do that upfront work initially, it'll help you on the back end. So that work has to be there. Otherwise, you're just getting lucky, right?
Yeah, and I think, when you're on the manager side, I understand, you wanna only invest so much time with so many partners, and you don't wanna provide the same responses, which we've actually talked about. A lot of times they could probably, record one of these sessions and just replay it for other people, even if they're doing it internally in an intake, just save it and share it with someone else, but
Or even a document. It doesn't even have to be
document.
a verbal kind of dialogue.
Yeah, but I think it goes, like, to the way I view this is you can only ask questions about things that you understand because at that level, you know how to get a little bit deeper into the onion. If you don't know something, then you're gonna have cursory knowledge and you can only go so deep, and you may not expose the real issues that's plaguing the hiring manager. And then what happens is this circular process of you sending a candidate, it's not good enough. They give you the same feedback and you're really not moving the needle. And if you don't know again the depth of the question you need to ask, then you're in trouble. And I think a lot of times, internal, external, I think that's the big problem is now internal teams have access to the manager at times, sometimes.
Still same
Yeah.
busy, type of
But there's a
schedule.
gap because the hiring manager is subject matter expert and the talent team is not.
Sure.
So I think there's probably a gap from what the hiring manager is comfortable in the depths of going. Now, if you brought us a, role deep in the finance field, right? I wouldn't probably have very many clues of what questions that I'd wanna ask this person, the hiring manager, because I have a cursory knowledge of what they do in the role. If it's an accountant or CPA, I might be able to understand, okay, conceptually, what do you want? But if once they start getting into really deep accounting this is what they need, I'd be like, I won't even know what questions to ask. I'll say, "Okay," and I'm gonna hope then when I start resume searching, I'm gonna ask that question, "Do you do this?" But with the answer I get from the candidate, I'm actually not gonna be able to understand if it's just a, "Yes, I do this," or to what level, to the degree they want, etcetera.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some points, there's going to be a gap, right, in knowledge, and so you can try to remedy that by, having the hiring manager kind of give you a couple questions with, preset answers that they want to hear or should be hearing from whoever you're talking to. So that's a way to kind of bridge that gap, and shrink that knowledge gap if it's something that you really can't kind of dive into. That's a tactic that we've used. I think sometimes though, you know, managers get into that mode of just pass, 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 and it's, as an internal recruiter, as an agency recruiter, you need feedback. You need to understand what was missing from this person, right? And I think, we live in such a fast-paced world that it's just like next, it's like swiping, it's like, okay, but I think it's that granular information. To your point, not having the knowledge, there can be some of it that's given to you enough to be able to then do your job more effectively.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously, if you have a lot of repetition in certain types of roles, you're going to gain depth and experience. So I think that that is a bit of the solution. As if you're you're a recruiter, the deeper you get in one subject area, you're going to understand the functional role much better because it's easier, not easy, it's easier to understand the technical piece because either someone has the technical piece or they don't.
Right.
Now the question is it being applied the same way, the nuances of how it's being used, all that? But the functional side is much more difficult because you actually have to understand what's going on. So I worked on a laboratory information management system analyst role, and I've never heard of immunohistochemistry before. It took me a long time to say that word, by the way. I had to practice that because I was
They
like,
need an acronym for it.
that was like these science people are really gonna look at me like you have no idea what you're talking. So I know I had never immunohistochemistry, and I knew they needed it, and some people had it, and then I started realizing it wasn't enough to know that they had the technical checkbox. Then I had to understand how they run, like, their assays in the lab side, and then what kinda it made me keep diving deeper and understanding. I was on Wikipedia quite a lot at night just trying to understand what happens in lab, and then I was able to converse better, and it helped my accuracy. But
Right.
I think until I had enough knowledge to ask the right question, and I think if anyone, if you've ever hired a contractor to come to your home to repair something, right? If you've had an electrician come to your house and give you a bid versus a general contractor, the electrician knows his electrical stuff dialed in. Don't ask him to look at something outside his lane.
Sure, of
The
course.
general contractor might be able to help you with some electrical work if he's licensed as, an electrician or if they have somebody on. But the guy who's there, he might just be a general contractor understanding it. He might subcontract that work out.
Right.
And he's never going to give you the exact, that exact answer you're looking for because he's not subject matter.
Yeah, well, I think that's talking about specialty, right? And knowing your craft, to that level. I think there's areas that all recruiters could do better job in learning the roles that they're recruiting for even more in depth, right? Talking to more hiring managers, talking to whether it's, product people, software engineers, data scientists, anything, talk to the people at your company and learn more. And then there's always Google, which is a great tool
Love it.
to learn more about whatever it is that you're trying to recruit for. The more you know, the more powerful conversations you can have and the better, like you said, more accurate, more consistent, and quicker and faster you can get to the right person.
Yeah, and I think, I think when it comes to being able to help, whether you're internal or external, I don't think it matters because you're still solving the same problem in terms of, the recruiting piece, the sourcing piece. I do think the depth of skill gives you the ability to ask different questions. And I think that's for me the big thing that I've kind of now noticed over the years. And I think that's why with hiring managers, when I talk to them about data roles, because I was in the data field, I have a body of knowledge that I can fall back on. Now, obviously, not every recruiter is going to have that experience, but I think when I'm now looking at areas that I've never worked in as an engineer, and I spend time learning about it, I have a little bit more I'm gaining to have that conversation with the hiring manager. So I think it's difficult because we teach people that you need to go recruit and source, and you need to be really good and get your bullion down in the interview process. But then I don't know how many companies, internal or external, really spend time for their candidates to understand the subject matter. and then go off and do.
Yeah, I think a good tactic is shadowing, right? You got to know what you're looking for, and the more you know what you're looking for, it should make it hopefully easier.
Yeah, I mean, we could keep going because I think this is actually a bigger topic. Who knows? Well, maybe we'll do a follow up about how do you, as recruiters, internal, external, ramp up to make sure that a you have the body of knowledge to hold your own to an extent, and know what questions that you have to be asking. So let us know how you go about that. If it's just a good old googling and Wikipedia, then
That works too.
if it's something we're not talking about, I'd love to know, but leave us a little bit of feedback and let us know how we're doing. Thanks.
Bye.